It can be frustrating. It feels like we're doing a lot here in the city. It doesn't feel like, like down I-35 there's as much. There's a lot, so thank you. Good morning, and we will call to order our MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for October 3rd, 2024. Item 2 on our agenda is items for individual consideration. 2A is approval of minutes from our September 5th board meeting. Minutes were included in your packet. Any changes, corrections? If not, I take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending August 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have in your packet the monthly financial report. On the revenue side for the month, we have $11,903,640. Fiscal year of $24,144,651, and a total of $571,012,035. Want to bring to your attention that we still are at 3% beyond projections. Then on the expenditure side for the month, we have $3,884,811. Fiscal year $15,499,059, and a total of $230,562,576. I will try to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Todd? If not, I take a motion in a second to receive the report. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2C, presentation on the construction progress, of the MAPS 4 downtown arena upgrades.
So we try to bring you periodically the progress of projects. Today, Kevin Cook from Populous is here to show you what's going on at the Paycom.
Welcome, Kevin. Thank you for being here.
Morning. Good to see you all again. So this is the kind of the last remaining investment we've all made here for the Paycom Center. It's a small construction project. We're looking to do 4 spaces. We presented this, I believe, back in May to go out to bid, and Wind Construction was selected as the contractor. The 4 spaces are 2 office areas, one for the Thunder and one for ASM, and then a crew room that's being converted into a lounge space, and then some promoter room updates. So I'm going to run through a little bit of what's changed since they've started and go through that. So looking here on the crew room, this is the event level of the facility where the court is. And so the crew room is there at the top on your screen. It's the east side, and it's a small space where today crews for shows come in, and they'll wait in that space while the event is going on, like a concert, and then they go tear down and set up for the next event in there. The ASM doesn't use that space much anymore, and they wanted to convert that into a lounge space. And so what you see on the screen on the left are the current images of what it looked like before we started any work in here. And then the 2 images on the right were the renderings of what that lounge space could be. So you see on the top right image, it's a large half-circle feature wall in that space with a little bit of a countertop bar at the end. And then the bottom picture shows seating and this kind of ledge space where we're going to put concert and music memorabilia. And so what that space looks like today, they've completely demoed the area. They've started to take out all the mechanical and ceilings and lighting in that space, and have begun to frame things. You can see in the very large picture on the left, the half moon of the feature wall is installed there, and then the countertop and some of the other framing associated in that room. This is the space that's going to be the farthest along. It's got the most work in it of all the projects, so this one's going to take the most time. As we go to the other side of that floor, there's 3 promoter rooms today that exist in there. This is where people come in for shows, or even the Thunder use this on game nights. Executives will come and work in these spaces, open a laptop, sit in there and relax before game time or before the show happens. And so on the top left is an example of what one of those rooms looks like. You can see they've got nice finishes and seating and things, so they didn't need a lot of work done in them, but ASM was hoping to just up them a little bit, give them kind of a nice vibe and make them a little more hip. So you see they had some existing guitars and some things just sitting on the wall today. So they wanted to look at doing some cool graphics. And so what you see here are some of the examples of what we're going to do in some of these rooms. So the top right, is an image of an artist with maybe an LED sign up on the left side. And you can see that we're showing records and things being used kind of as the hair. On the bottom left is the 405 Live. That's a branding opportunity they're using in that space. And then the image on the right, actually going to find real instruments and hang those on the wall to help give kind of a 3D effect to that space. Associated with the promoter rooms, there's one restroom that needed updated. And so the pictures on the left are the restroom, how it was. And on the right, they completely removed all the tile and fixtures in that space. And they're prepping it now to get refinished and update the entire restroom. The signage and the graphics for the other rooms are all in fabrication right now, and we can share an update on that when they're finished and ready to go. At the main entry level, this is what used to be the kids club in the main concourse. This is the space the Thunder is going to use for their office expansion. And as you can see here, kind of a plan of what that looks like. So there's going to be four enclosed offices and then a large open space for additional cubicles or workstations, I should say. An example there on the right of the screen to help get about 18 to 20 additional people into this space for an office area. We didn't have any images or pictures of the construction of this when I had the presentation made, so this is kind of where it is, but I'll just tell you that they've got all the wall framing up, the ceilings are done, and they're starting to paint the space already. One of the biggest pushes for this space was to have it done as far done as it could be before the first game, which the first preseason game is next week, I believe. So the good news is they're going to have all the major efforts done. Drywall, so there won't be sawdust or drywall dust tracking around. Painting should be done. Carpet might not be in this space, but at least they're not moving framing and other equipment in and out of there. So the contractor will have most of their efforts done in this space, and then they can just do what they need to do on game night to keep it closed. And then the last space is the ASM office expansion. This is up on the atrium level. When you come in on the west side and go up the escalators, there was an open area, and I'll show that here in a second. So what they're doing here is getting 10 additional office spaces up in this little corner area. There's not a lot of room, but they were able to squeeze in some spaces. And a lot of these the users of this space currently live in the Cox Convention Center. So they're trying to get more of those people out of that building so that they can have a home for people in this space. So that was the big push for this area. So you see on the picture on the left, that's what that space looked like when you came up the atrium level, and there was just pretty much open area up there that wasn't really being utilized. And then some pictures on the right, you start to see an office wall, and the views they're gonna have out of these offices are gonna be really nice with the glass. One advantage of this space is the flooring is already a really nice terrazzo, and the ceiling is a metal panel ceiling. So we're looking to use all that and not have to put new carpet down or any changes to those. So just a quick look ahead, the Thunder offices are the farthest along right now. They're painting and getting ready to do carpet here in the next couple weeks. The biggest issue on that room is the actual furniture delivery, and that's being pushed out a little bit on some longer lead times. So they're looking, it says here early October, it's actually now going to be probably more end of October, 1st of November for that space. But in general, the space should be really close to being done, especially by the first real home game, which I think is the 27th, if I remember right. The ASM offices as well is very similar to that. With that being up on the atrium level, they want that done as far along as possible as well, and it's tracking just behind the Thunder office space. They're going to be wrapping up all the drywall here this week, starting to paint. The ceiling and mechanical stuff is complete, and they're looking to get furniture about the same time. The crew room is the room with the most work that has to be done in there, and so it's going to be the last to be done. It's shooting for late November for that space. As you saw, they really had only just framing, but they're going to start working on sealing and mechanical systems here next week, and then millwork and other things will be installed in the coming weeks. And then the last thing, as I mentioned on the promoter rooms, the signage and graphics are all in fabrication right now, and as soon as those are complete, they'll be able to go in and hang those pretty quickly in between any event they have. There is one quick change order, and I think it's maybe the next item on your agenda here, but I'll just run through it real fast. It's a change order for 2 items. One is the building permit fee. That was estimated during bidding. An estimate was given to the contractors at that time, and the estimate came in a little more than expected, or was off by a little bit. So the building permit fee is adding additional funding for that for $8,500. And then some HVAC modifications. This is in the ASM office space. As I said, it had a metal panel ceiling, and when they took that down, there was an existing HVAC unit that we knew was up there, but we weren't quite sure where it was. And of course, it was right where a bunch of walls needed to go up to deck to seal off the offices, and so we had to move that unit over, which impacted some additional ductwork and controls for that unit. So that's a $20,000 change. So in total, it's a $28,760.50 change order. It's a 1% increase to the total contract amount, and does not impact the completion date, which is still December 6th of this year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Kevin? Okay, no. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so moving on to item 2D, as Kevin mentioned, we have a recommended change order for the downtown arena buildings and an increase of $28,760.50. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2E, recommend approval of change order number 13 for the MAPS 4 Fairground Coliseum for an increase of $34,476.
Travis Pauly from Populous is here to go through progress of the Coliseum and also for this change order.
Okay, welcome Travis. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank God to be here. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to show you guys some progress on the Coliseum project. So what we'll do is we'll walk through some construction photos here. I'll give you a few of those cost updates that are related to that change order that you just talked about, and talk about a little bit of the project look ahead going towards the end of the year. So first, just some pictures of the project. So hopefully you guys either made it out to the fair or you've at least driven by and seen the progress. The project's really taken shape. This first picture is of the kind of southwest facade facing the highways that go by it. So the panels are starting to go up. You see the big OKC feature right there, and kind of the gradient fade happening in the panel. So it's starting to take shape and give you an idea of what this thing's going to look like when it's all complete. I'll say right here, I'm going to show you a picture of the roof coming up, and it's going to be the same wall that you're looking at right now. So we'll see up above what it looks like just beyond that OKC in a picture coming up here in a little bit. Up around the right-hand side, you can have a key of where all these pictures are in relationship to the project as we walk through it. So going on around the building here, our mechanical yard is taking shape. The equipment is in, and they're starting to pour the foundations for the fence that will go around that yard. Continuing around, just an overall shot of that facade right there. You can see the fair happening in the background and the panels going up. As we make our way around the front of the building, you can see the front is starting to all get framed in and take shape. So the whole thing is starting to look like what it's actually going to look like when it's all finished up here. That hole that you see in the building right there in the middle is the construction access up to the concourse level, just so they can use their lifts and things like that and deliver stuff right to the concourse for as long as they can. So they're going to try to keep that just so they can access it for delivering materials up to the concourse level as much as they can before they close that in. So if you see that there, it's not a window or anything. It will be closed up with panels like everywhere else. Coming around the front side, you can see the windows that kind of integrate into that chevron pattern have been cut in. The framing has all been installed since then, so that area that was incomplete in this picture has all been finished up, and they're starting to put that black weather barrier on the green sheathing. And then I just took a few pictures of the fair so you can see it kind of in action during the fair. Fun to see how the fair worked around it. The fairgrounds and Flintco have done a really good job of working with each other and coordinating where the construction fence is going to go, cleaning up the site and making sure everything is safe and ready for all the events out there, but especially the fair is the key one because of so many people going around the site. As we come around to the northeast side, this is our plaza area that faces the fairgrounds. So these are big planters that kind of define that plaza area, bring some nice greenery into the fairgrounds, into that space that has a lot of concrete, so it'll be nice to get some trees and some shade into that area. This plaza space right here that you see as dirt is also related to another one of the items in that change order that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then hopping up on the roof before we go inside, this is that OKC wall that you just looked at from the outside right here. So behind that is hiding our mechanical roof wells on each side. If you remember, that's one of the things that we did early on in the process was to bring our structure in to try to tighten it up and find some savings there and create these mechanical roof wells to house our equipment instead of it all having to be in a mezzanine or outside. And you can see that the roof well size and shape and everything is working really well. Our mechanical equipment fits right in there. You can't see anything from the outside. That space is really big. When you walk down in there, you can see that door right there to give you a sense of how big those mechanical units are. You can actually walk through those things. And then hopping inside, our main entry lobby has taken shape. Our grand stair has been installed. They're mocking up the tile that's going to go on it right there. Over on your left side is going to be our big feature wood OKC feature wall. And you can see as you go up those grand stairs, you're going to get that view out of those windows towards the fairgrounds and downtown. Our arena floor has all been poured, and they're installing railing around the perimeter. They're also working on the ductwork that is going to come in from that roof well that I just showed you on each side. They're bringing in the ductwork from those roof wells up over the catwalk and into the space. These next two pictures are pretty ordinary looking pictures to most people, but for Flintco and our crew, this is a big milestone, getting the electrical and mechanical rooms completed. So they're getting ready to close in this building and start turning on this equipment, which is a really big milestone for them. Escalators at the north lobby, escalators 3 and 4 are installed. They've got the glass handrail that you don't see there because they've protected it from construction debris. The escalators on the main lobby that we just looked at are getting installed essentially right now, so that process is underway. Hopping up to the concourse level, this is our lounge. You can see the bowl is really starting to take shape. Railing is starting to go in. So this railing that you see here is our lounge railing, kind of our premium seating, where those will have caster seats. With the drink rail, it'll have a quartz countertop that goes on top of that area. But this same railing is the drink rail that goes around the entire perimeter of that concourse. So it's going to be really nice with the quartz countertop. It's a really nice feature that the Fairgrounds is excited to have. They think it's going to be heavily used. This is the window that's going to look out onto the future connector or promenade project that's going to connect this Coliseum to the existing super barn. It's going to go where the Norwick stands right now. So we knew that project was going to come on at some point. We didn't know when. Luckily, it's timing out to come in right after this project finishes. So you'll be able to stand here and look at all the competitors coming in from the super barn into the Coliseum to compete. It's going to be a neat feature. You can see that tile is starting to go up all around the concourse. So the tile is looking really sharp. It's really clean around the entire concourse. Some of the concessions are getting tile work done. You can see the white tile in the background and then the feature tile in the front. Restrooms are getting tiled. It's got a wood look tile underneath this protective covering. Wall tiles are going in. So it's starting to look more and more finished on the inside. This is a view of that same main lobby that we looked at from below, from up at the concourse level. So just really big and nice and open, full height space where you can see out those windows, see the fair going on, see downtown in the distance. The main atrium bar, the concourse bar will be right here to the right of that picture. So lots of space out in this open concourse level for people to congregate and enjoy themselves. A few cost updates we got. We talked about the change order 13. The item number 1 is an underground duct bank to that future promenade that I was just mentioning. So we have our power source for the promenade is coming from the south kind of east portion of the loading dock area. So right as you cross over the railroad tracks, when you're coming up on that big OKC, the power is coming from there. It has to go across the loading dock area to get to the promenade site. What we don't want to happen is we finish this whole project up and then we have to cut out all this concrete to install the power for that new connector. So what we're asking is, can we go ahead and install the conduit and the concrete that goes around it right now while it's all dug up? Be prudent with the city's funds and install that now before it all gets paved over, so we don't have to go back and demo stuff and redo it. Item 2 is a switch to electrical connection. So this is also on this is a little bit outside of the main portion of the site on the southeast side. We've got a new electrical switch going on. When they went to put it in, the existing terminations are all deteriorated. They can't connect to them. So they need to put new terminations on there so they can connect the new equipment. So that's about $4,000. The plaza paving change is actually a deduct. As directed by MAPS, we have continued to try to look for savings in this project wherever we can find it all along the way. This is one where we looked at the concrete that we had on that plaza. It was super heavy duty, which is good. This project needs heavy duty concrete because they're going to be putting trailers and all kinds of displays out there. We went and analyzed it and thought it was overdone a little bit. So we're reducing it down from a 9-inch heavy duty with a 12-inch subbase to just a 6-inch heavy duty with an 8-inch subbase. So that change, we've analyzed it. It's still plenty strong for what they're going to do out there, but it can save us $50,000 by doing that. And then item 4 is some additional fireproofing. Each of our columns, as they connect to the trusses for the roof structure, have to be fireproofed. There's a bunch of them up there, probably 100 or so connections that all are fireproofed. We missed about 7 of them, and so we need some additional fireproofing to cover all of those connections as they connect to the roof structure. So that's just the fireproofing that goes on that connection. All of that comes up to about $34,000. That's the 13th change order we had. The total for all of those combined is a net savings of $431,000. Our current contract price is just over $126 million. All of the change orders combined represent a reduction of 0.34% below the original contract amount. These last change order does not change the substantial completion date of the Coliseum, which is still June 1st of 2025. And then just a quick look ahead at what's coming up. As you see the site or drive by it, the roof is complete. So that was a big milestone. Exterior masonry and the panels and all that sheathing completion is upcoming here in the next few months. So they're working towards getting this thing dried in, which is another huge milestone for them. Once they get it dried in, then they can start turning on equipment, start conditioning that space, and we're going to be getting really close to finalizing this. All of that should happen here within the next few months. They'll frame in the windows at first, and then they'll have some temporary covering for them at first because they want to put that glass in as the last thing. Utility startup, Plaza Planner, we saw that construction is ongoing, so the planner construction will go on, and then the Plaza paving will start to be poured. Those next 3 utilities startup, energy switchgear and HVAC equipment startup are all kind of related. Will come in after that dry-in. That's another big milestone, is getting all the equipment started up in the facility. So that's coming up soon as well. And then finish out, you saw all the interior framing, the sheetrocking, all the finishes. Ceilings are going to go in now that they've got their inspections coming from all the overhead work. So ceilings will start coming in, and those interior spaces will start looking finished out. That's what I've got for you guys today. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Travis? No? Looks like it's coming along.
Yeah, it's going
Okay,
really well.
And thank you for the savings.
Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. So item 2E, yes, recommend approval of the change order. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2F, presentation on the construction progress of the MAPS 4 bus stop improvements Phase 1.
It's been a while since we've seen anything on bus stops. In fact, I don't think this group has seen anything on the construction. So Lydia Leslie from Kimley Horn is here to update you on the progress of the bus stops.
Welcome, Lydia.
Yeah, so it's different than a building. We're talking about flatwork and concrete now. And so just to remind you, we have 3 different sizes shelters that we'll be putting in, an 8-foot shelter, which are the majority of the shelters that'll be in town at these bus stops, and then some 12-foot and some 16-foot. Those are based on ridership, so those will be at some specific areas. We've been working in different zones, and so we've completed the zones. You'll see on the right-hand side Zone D and A were our first priorities, so we have 13 of those stops completed in Zone A, and we have 17 completed in Zone D, and now we're working in Zone E. So this just gives you a configuration of how we're doing those stops. If some of them prove to be a little difficult or challenging with right-of-way, we've moved along, so we just keep a steady. We still do have some right-of-way that we're acquiring. We have 49 parcels that we've been trying to acquire. 15 of those have been secured, 14 are in redesign. 18 people have given us a no, so we're seeking out some alternate locations for those. And we have 2 that are still pending with corporate responses. Wanted to show you some pictures of what these are looking like. So keep in mind, this is our flat work that we're doing right now. The shelters will be. So over the picture to the right shows you ideally what we'd love to do in a simplistic format. We have an existing 5-foot space along the curb for the bus stops, and we're being able to just fill that in with the existing sidewalk structures. On the left-hand side, it's a little bit more challenging. You see where we're having to add curb around, but with both of these will provide an ADA space. Also, we'll be showing you some areas here on the right-hand side. We have to work around some existing things like light fixtures or poles, so we're doing that. And again, the grade changes are inevitable, so we're having to add some curb along. And you'll see on the left-hand side some connectivity to the sidewalks. And we're furthering that to trying to provide connectivity to these bus stops. So these are pictures of just concrete sidewalks that we've had to improve in some areas. Working around, again, those utility poles and traffic poles where necessary and adding curb where needed. The picture on the left is the one that's a little bit more challenging. We do have some in the areas where we have some grade changes, so we're having to add more of a retaining wall than a curb. So we're adding handrail where appropriate, and still having that in the bottom of the picture, you'll see there's a connectivity to the existing sidewalk for that pedestrian. So our original budget was $4.3 million, and we have the contract for the flat work, for the concrete work that I've just shown you, for under $1 million. We do have some amendments and change orders I'll talk to you about in the next slide. The right-of-way acquisition is included in this budget, as well as the cost of the shelters and the installation of those shelters. And the shelters are being handled under embark contracts with Toller and Tyler Media to process that. So the current construction cost, including the amendment and change order to date, is $2.9 million. So we roughly have around $1.4 million remaining. And with that remaining funds, we'll be adding, those will be toward bus stops in the future. We'll be adding them as we can to this project or the future project. So the original contract for the flat work is $926,000. And the amendment number 1 is for $279,000. And what this amendment is to add additional sidewalk and remove additional sidewalk. We've come across some ADA issues that were in some existing sidewalk for that connectivity pieces. So we've had to remove additional sidewalk that wasn't interpreted before, so we're having to replace those areas. And then the change order is to have a water meter relocation and a unit price for that. So the total contract for the flat work is $1.2 million. So we've completed the stops that I've showed you. We've completed 30 of those to date. It's around 21% of the project completed. The current contract completion date is for April 16th, 2025. We've had to extend that a little bit because of the removal and replacement of the sidewalk that we didn't take into account. Those have taken longer per shelter than what we anticipated. And the delivery date of the shelters will be coming in this week, and they'll be starting to be assembled and then be putting in those stops that we've finished toward the end of the month. And then we'll have deliveries of the shelters in batches of 15 every month. And so as we complete the concrete work, the shelters will be included. So with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Lydia. Any questions? Yes. Sure.
Hi, I know that we're intending that any additional funds that aren't being used right now will be allocated to additional shelters. Are those identified already, like the locations for where those will be?
We do have a pot of work that we've been looking at for the stops. And so we do have some that are ready to go for if we can use those additional funds.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 2G, recommend approval of change order number 1 and amendment number 1, just that Lydia was just talking about, for the MAPS 4 bus stop improvement phase 1, an increase of $280,193. Any questions? Not, I take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Great. The motion passed, right? Okay. Moving on to item 2H, recommend approval of the final plans and specifications to be advertised for bid. Project for the MAPS 4 sidewalk and related amenities, Phase 1B, vicinity of Southwestern Avenue and Southwest Grand Boulevard, South Pennsylvania Avenue, Southwest 51st Street, and Southwestern Avenue and Southwestern 134th.
So switching to sidewalks now, this is our second package of sidewalks that we'll put out for bid. Craig Wallace from SRB, Smith Roberts Baldwin is here to go through what's in this package.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
Welcome.
Thank you for allowing us to come present this morning. This presentation up. Aha. There we go. Let me go back to the start. All right, here we go. Thank you very much. As David mentioned in your packet says, this is the presentation for final plans for the second construction project for MAPS 4 sidewalks. Obviously, this project is intended to improve connectivity. We are in the southwest side of Oklahoma City. Accessibility, walkability, and pedestrian safety are key points of this. It does include 3 different areas within the city. You can see the Southwestern Avenue PPA, the pedestrian preferred areas, as well as South Penn, and far southwest Oklahoma City also has a section of sidewalk. The sidewalks are along arterials, collectors, pedestrian areas, or residential areas to enhance connectivity in those areas. We do show maps here along Southwestern. This is a Southwestern PPA. Western is kind of the center point of these alignments. You can see off of Southwest 44th Street, between Southwest 44th and Grand, and then actually from Ollie to the east side, and then to west to Blackwelder. This alignment does pick up Capitol Hill High School, an elementary school as well, and some of the economic areas in that. One thing I did want to point out, as it ties to connectivity, we also have Integris Southwest as part of this area. We just completed a very large sidewalk improvements with Public Works that included 44th Street and included Blackwelder, even some sidewalks along Grand, and so adding this section of sidewalk with those really does improve this area considerably for pedestrian accessibility, because I know on 44th Street all the way from Blackwelder, even east to Robinson with sidewalk, and so the Ollie alignment, as well as some of these alignments off of Douglas, will connect to those. So, looking at the walk, OKC bike walk plan, this really adds considerable sidewalk for that. This is a plan sheet along this alignment here on 41st Street, and it basically just shows you what we're looking at, sidewalk on both sides along this particular residential road. We do have some challenges. This is Grant on the South Penn PPA. Grant High School, the softball field does pose a little bit of issues with sidewalk on that side, but because we have sidewalks on both sides in that area, we're able to go across the street and make sure we have accessibility. This South Penn PPA does pick up Grant High School. It picks up Coolidge Elementary School, so connectivity to a lot of the city, the schools as well as other amenities are key parts of these alignments. Again, a plan sheet that shows where these sidewalks will be located within that South Penn PPA is shown on this slide. Far southwest area actually picks up a section of sidewalk there on Southwest 134th Street between Western and east towards Santa Fe. There is on the far east side of this particular slide, or this particular alignment, it picks up a post office. There on the north side, we do pick up Westmore High School. Also, Merle Medley Park, you'll see a section trying to fill in some sidewalk there to make sure the connectivity is complete. So parks, schools, other amenities, as I mentioned before, key functions. Again, challenges to how we tie into the existing structure in order to tie that to make sure that it's accessible for all people are some of the challenges as we do that. These are typical sections that are utilized within all the sidewalks. Some of the sidewalk will be off the curb. We try to keep sidewalk off the curb. Some of them will be behind curb. And I know Lydia had mentioned that retaining walls are necessary in certain areas to tie elevations, and so these typical sections show the different functions or the different means in which we have to design for that. The budget slide shows where the original budget for phase 2 is $3.8 million. If you look at the estimate for each one of these areas, you'll see that we're below that, we're well below that. But it does pick up 31,030 linear feet of sidewalk in these 3 areas. So that adds considerable amount of sidewalk to the city. The next steps of this, we're coming before you now and then the council for final approval of these plans. So then we can advertise and bid October, towards the end of October, 1st of November, issuing a contract and hoping to start construction in December. And with that, this shows a timeline of that schedule actually from the very start of the project to where we go into construction in December. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Any questions? Oh. Glad to hear there's more work on sidewalks in those areas needed, so thank you. So we need to vote on the recommended plans. Please cast your votes. Motion
Thank you
passes.
very
Thank you
much.
so much for being here. Moving on to item 2I, recommend approval of change order number 1 and amendment number 1 project maps for parks enhancement, public spaces transformation river, phase 1 pedestrian bridge for an increase of $596,987.50.
If you recall, we are doing the pedestrian bridge near the O'Connor development, and it is under construction. Chris Russell from Team Engineers is here to give you some highlights on that project.
Welcome, Chris.
Hi, thank you for having me back. Let's see, do I need to switch it? Sorry. Oh. Okay, thanks. All right, thank you for having me. Yes, so this is going to be the first project update and change order 1, amendment 1 on the pedestrian bridge project over the Oklahoma River. So just a reorientation where we're at. As David mentioned, on the South Shore, this pedestrian bridge is going near the O'Connor construction that's going on, as well as the Embark project on the South Shore, and then on the North Shore is the Greenway Trails. Here is a plan and elevation view of the bridge from the original bid construction documents. Just to kind of use some terminology I'm going to use going forward. So north is to the right. On the left side of your sheet, we've got abutment 1, that's on the South Shore. It's got its own pair of retaining walls. And then as we move towards the North Shore, towards the right of the sheet, we've got piers 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the water. Then the North Shore, that'll be abutment 2. It also has a pair of retaining walls. So, jumping into it, notice proceed was provided to the contractor in early June. They got right on it, and so this is on the North Shore looking at abutment 2. Starting off, the contractor's drilling the drilled shafts, the foundation that'll support that abutment. At the same time, they began working on constructing their barges, which will float in the river, let them work on the piers and all the work they need to do in the river. So this is the first completed one. Then we've got a couple aerials here. You'll see the second barge that they've begun working to get constructed, as well as just some ongoing site preparation as they get their equipment in place and initial grading. Just second photo, same day, different angle. So mid-July, we're back on the North Shore, looking south. This is, you can see the same drilled shaft that we saw at that first photo at the shoreline. What they're also constructing here are the foundation piles for those retaining walls, so separate from the abutment foundation. Then jump a month to mid-August. These are the completed retaining walls that are going on the North Shore. We also have some photos of the reinforcing steel cages. Those will be dropped into those drilled shafts after they've been drilled out. Oh, one too many. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is, again, North Shore. They've got, at this point, they have most of the drilled shafts on that north abutment completed. There's a couple left at this point in time. You can also see that the contractor has started working on that Pier 4 in the water. That's the one closest to the North Shore. And then they're actually on the South Shore. You can see them prepping the South Shore for that abutment one, the construction. Same thing they're doing in this photo on the North Shore. Last week of August, this is on the South Shore looking back north. They're back working on Pier 4, getting it drilled and set. That same day, reason we were on the South Shore, we were doing some additional geotechnical work near those drilled shafts to verify the rock formation the contractor was encountering as they were drilling down. So beginning of August, at this point, all of the drilled shafts on the north abutment are completed. Contractors preparing the reinforcing cages. That'll be the footing of the abutment so they can keep building up. At this point in time, I don't have any more photos of it for when this presentation was prepared, but they've gotten some additional walls up on that abutment and they're working their way up. Also in this photo, you can see the Pier 4 is completed and the contractor is a little further in the river working on Pier 3. The change order 1 and amendment 1. Change order 1 is, original contract price is just over $5.7 million. The change order 1 is a no-cost change order. That is to adjust the contractor's contract time from December of this year to July of next year. Then we've got the amendment 1. So this is to reconcile the additional drilled shafts. So every time you drill in the ground, you're kind of going blind until you hit what you hit. We have ideas of what's going on, but rock changes over time. And so it's kind of a guessing game there to some degree. So the contractor, they were encountering some differing materials. That's why we had the geotechnical testing going on. So we've sorted through a lot of that on the North Shore and some in the water. This reconciles drilling those drilled shafts further down at each of those drilled shaft locations, both in the water and on the shores. So that totals just under $600,000, bringing the revised contract price to just over $6.3 million. Looking ahead at the construction schedule from here to the revised one in July of next year, in October, we're expecting to complete the north abutment and those retaining walls that tie in together. November, they're planning to complete all 4 piers in the water. December, they'll be finishing up the South Shore abutment and retaining walls. Roll into February of next year, they'll be placing the steel beams that were purchased previously as part of NPR 10. Then in April, they'll be finishing the bridge decking and those abutment paving, so that's all the surface paving that people will be walking on. June of next year is when they'll be installing those last amenities, the railing, the lighting, some concrete finishes, that kind of thing, to be wrapping up in July. And with that, if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. If not, we'll take a motion and a second to approve the change order and amendment. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2J, recommend approval of term sheet for the lease and management agreement between the City of Oklahoma City Property Authorities, and the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City for the MAPS 4 Senior Wellness Center operator.
So as you said, this is for the operator of what will be our 5th wellness center, the first one in MAPS 4. I believe all of you, except maybe Ryan, have been involved in the selection of consultants and operators. We went through the usual standard procedure to select the operator. Ultimately, the committee is recommending the YMCA, and Kelly Kay is here to talk about what the YMCA brings for this facility.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here with you today, and Carrie stepped out as the presentation up there. Oh, she's doing it in the back. Oh, shocking.
Here she is.
Get it figured out, Carrie. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, we are so excited to be here with you today and just to hear all the updates, and we just appreciate so much the opportunity to be a part of this, to continue to work with the MAPS project team and bring the next Senior Health and Wellness Center to Oklahoma City. We have such a rich history of service to this community and serving seniors all across central Oklahoma, and having been selected as the operating partner and recently opening MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 4 in far south Oklahoma City, had some great success, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but we really put a lot of thought into our preparation for this center, and really excited about our ongoing partnerships with Integris Health and Jim Thorpe Rehabilitation Daily Living Centers, and excited about this project. Just a little bit of information I wanted to share about the Y and our experience and our history and impact, about our operational expertise that we bring, the systems of support that we bring to these operations, and all the programming, ongoing maintenance, and maintaining facilities. And then a little bit about our brand of partnership power, which is key to everything we do. Almost every project that we do today is through several collaborating partners. But I believe this also will bring a very special, innovative approach with some adaptive and intergenerational programming. And then want to also give a quick update on some of our senior programming success, especially with the recent opening of Center number 4. Just to give you a little bit of a sense, so you know, it's such an honor to lead an organization that started 3 weeks after the land run. We celebrated our 135th anniversary, and it's hard to imagine all the changes that our Y has seen over the years, and that rich history and leadership truly shaping the generations of our state. And everybody is very familiar with all the work the Y does in youth development and healthy living and giving back and supporting our neighbors through our social responsibility programs, serving this last year 232,000 individuals. But I think it's important to point out that the Y really already is the Senior Health and Wellness Centers of Greater Oklahoma City, with over 47,000 individuals over the age of 50 that we served this last year. Also, I believe our important mission to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. And those last two words, for all, we ensure no one has ever turned away due to an inability to pay, and provided over $2.8 million in financial assistance this last year. I just think that the Y is really one of those special institutions and hubs of our community where people from all walks of life are able to still come together. And these senior wellness centers through MAPS have really proven to be those tremendous community assets, community hubs as well. And so we're so excited to now have two of them potentially in our model, because we really strive to be a beacon of hope and health for all in our community. And just to give you a little bit of a sense of our footprint across central Oklahoma, we have 14 full facility YMCAs around central Oklahoma. In addition, the one MAPS 3 Center number 4 that we just opened. That encompasses about 800,000 square feet of facilities that we operate, program, and maintain every day, that include about 1,500 pieces of cardio and strength equipment, 70 sport courts, 11 indoor swimming pools, 800 group exercise classes all across our system every week. Mentioned already 47,000 served. And then also ensuring that seniors have access to good nutrition, healthy meals and snacks, and providing over 20,000 meals this last year. And that number will continue to grow with these additional operations. I wanted to give you just a little bit of a sense too, because partly coming out of the pandemic, but also just how much the Y has grown and the needs of our seniors have grown just in our experience, even before the opening of center number 4. And you can see at the numbers there growing from just under 34,000 older adults in 2021 to already 47,000 in 2023. And those numbers are all before opening center number 4. So these numbers will continue to grow, and you know, healthy aging, chronic disease prevention are so key to our YMCA mission and impact we're striving to have. I also wanted to just give you a real quick glimpse. I think sometimes the numbers say a lot, but I think pictures are worth 1,000 words too. And just to give you a little bit of a visual here, and in this map that I'm showing you, this kind of shows all of the metro area and already all of the individual households that the Y is serving, with the purple representing those households age 65 and over, and the blue representing those age 50 to 64 in those households. So this would be far north Edmond to the Kilpatrick Turnpike, and then this would be south from 240 down through Norman, and then kind of more of the center city looking at you can see up around Lake Hefner down through the city, all the way down to 240, and then out east. Just tremendous reach and impact and penetration, and obviously a lot of trust with senior adults coming to our YMCAs to connect with each other and improve their quality of life through healthy living programs and all the social and educational activities that we do. So the Y does have such a rich history as a trusted brand, especially by seniors. As a 501c3 charitable nonprofit, as I mentioned, we ensure nobody is turned away, and lots of efforts to reach out and provide grants and find partners to come alongside to help meet those needs. As I mentioned, the Y is that one place where everyone feels safe and welcome, a sense of belonging. But for those that do have a little higher level of needs, we can also be that hub where those services are received, and there's just no social stigma when you're getting those services through the Y. Obviously, a wide scope and breadth and quality of the services that we offer, and very strong safety standards. I'm very proud to say, you know, of the senior health and wellness centers through MAPS, ours is the only one that has a lifeguard on the pool deck every hour that the pool is open, and we're excited to be able to do that. We feel like that's very important. If you look statistically, there are many more times health events that affect especially older populations in the water than an actual drowning. So we think it's very important to have those safety standards in place. And then, as I mentioned, ensuring access and inclusion and engagement. And then certainly all of our intentional efforts to connect people. Coming out of the pandemic, it was so important. Our seniors were told they were safer at home, and when we were able to reopen, they were the first ones back in the Y. They were just so important for them to be together and connected. And that's why I think that what we're bringing in this proposal, with the successes that we've had in serving seniors, all the things that we've learned, the things that the Y does as a national movement related to healthy aging and chronic disease prevention, we're really excited about the partnerships that we've put together. I truly believe that this will be the most innovative and inclusive and impactful senior health and wellness center yet. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to invite Anissa Chaddick, our Executive Director of Healthy Living, to come up and share some of the key pieces that we've thought about in this partnership. Anissa.
Thanks, Kelly.
Good morning.
Welcome.
As we all know, the MAPS Senior Health and Wellness Centers were developed to connect Oklahoma City seniors with important services and each other. Based on this principle, one of our key strategies was to identify community partners that would help carry out this vision. We have those supporting partners with us today, and so if they'll please stand and wave, our friends from Integris and the Daily Living Centers. And I'd like to just take a moment to talk about our partners. So Integris Health and the YMCA actually joined forces several years ago to positively impact the health and well-being of the people in the communities that we serve. We operated their hospital-based fitness center. Some of you might know that as formerly known as PACER. It was also the YMCA Healthy Living Center, but we also housed Jim Thorpe Rehabilitation Services outpatient in some of our Ys across central Oklahoma. And because of this, it creates a natural transition to the Y once the patient completes their therapy. I'd also like to mention that Integris Health will bring many assets to the table when it comes to serving older adults. We plan to leverage their healthcare professionals and subject matter experts in the programs and services we will provide. Daily Living Centers is our other partner, and a fun fact about them, Daily Living Centers was founded in 1974 as a pilot between the YMCA and Area-Wide Aging Agency. Another fun fact that you may not know is that Oklahoma has 3,000 child care centers, but only 21 adult day centers. An adult day center provides a supervised community setting for older adults while caregivers are at work or dealing with other responsibilities. These services will be critical soon because the population of older adults is projected to increase over 21% by 2034. For the first time ever, adults 60 and over are expected to outnumber children in Oklahoma. Daily Living Centers currently operate 3 non-residential care centers supporting the needs of senior adults, adults with developmental disabilities, and their caregivers. They provide healthy meals, transportation, activities and socialization, nursing services, as well as caregiver support. So a couple of different things that we wanted to incorporate into programming was an adaptive fitness model. We identified this need while preparing our proposal with the lack of fully adaptive fitness centers across Oklahoma City. And this is beyond ADA compliance. Well, sorry, I've somehow lost the PowerPoint. Did I do that, Carrie? Okay, that's okay. Historically, the fitness industry was not accessible to people with different abilities. Gyms and equipment that are wheelchair accessible are still a rarity and not a norm. To be a best-in-class model, we will need to start from the inception, and partnering with Integris Health and particularly Jim Thorpe Rehabilitation Services will be key to success in this model. The model will address the needs for both temporary and permanent disabilities. It will ensure the physical fitness and healthy lifestyles is no longer out of the reach for anyone, as well as our approach will include guidance from a recreational therapist, as well as professional trainers and the use of adaptive equipment. Our programs will empower members with the tools and resources they need to grow not only physically, but mentally. When exploring how we could make the most impact on quality of life and social isolation, we discovered something that could be possibly improve health more than medicine. One model that we discovered was a study in Australia, and I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to see this show. They actually did a show about it, but it was an evidence-based study, and it's Old People's Home for 4-year-olds. So I hope that you have an opportunity to Google that and take a look at that show. It's wonderful. But our program will be structured and supervised in an intentional setting, and again, our partnership with Integris Health will be key in developing this model and the expertise that they provide in youth and family services paired with ours. Another reason this model is important is that we discovered that 10% of Oklahomans, our grandparents, are raising their grandchildren. Finding services and resources can be a long, frustrating process that sometimes seems overwhelming. Determining where to begin is sometimes the most difficult task, and this care model would provide solutions and results for these grand families. Sorry, I should have gone through the PowerPoint. So we do have a long history of supporting older adults in our community, and I'd be remiss not to mention the Lincoln Park Senior Center. This was a wonderful group of seniors that we supported in the community for a very long time. I also want to talk about our new facility, the MAPS 3 Center 4, as Kelly mentioned, as we lovingly call the YMCA Healthy Living Center. We have over 2,500 members as of September. We've had, since opening in May, we've had a total of over 65,000 visits or check-ins. Our group fitness and our water fitness programs are going strong. We also are providing art classes, and we provide at least 28 hours of programming in educational offerings and hosting community groups. So we've had a lot of success so far with that center, and we're really proud of it. So I want to mention that we believe partnerships are key to our success. As you can see there, we have many community partners. When it comes to programming for older adults, we are the official training partner for the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon, Senior Memorial Marathon. We also provide training programs for the Oklahoma Senior Games. And then we also provide many evidence-based programs, as Kelly mentioned, to manage chronic diseases such as arthritis, Parkinson's, and we also have programming focused on brain health, to just name a few. We know that it takes a village, and if we want to go far, we need to go together. So, open it up for questions.
Sorry. Any questions? Yes, Chelsea.
My question might actually be for David, but before I say that, I really appreciate your language, especially around differently abled bodies, and then also the data and information about grandparents raising the grandchildren. That's very interesting, insightful information. Thank you for that. David, I recall that we were still seeking an operator for one of the MAPS 3 wellness centers, but obviously it's not the fourth one. Is that still accurate?
Yes, Parks Department, I believe, is still considering an operating partner for what we recognize as Wellness Center 2. It's the one at the Capitol Hill High School campus.
Okay. That was it, just clarifying for me. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, both very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion and a second to approve the term sheet and lease. Okay, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2K, recommend approval of site for the MAPS 4 Mental Health Crisis Center.
So now we move on to mental health. We have a kind of a two-part presentation here. AJ Kirkpatrick from ADG will start us off.
Welcome, AJ.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, so I was here last month for the Restoration Center. I'm going to use a lot of the same visuals that you saw in that last month's presentation, but today we're talking about the Crisis Center, which is the other major piece of the mental health package. As a reminder, it includes the Restoration Center, the Combined Crisis Center now, and then transitional housing as the third piece. So in a very similar vein to what we talked about last month, we were starting down that road of looking at other sites, and we're starting to kind of come up with a criteria for that. And we happened to work out a site that we think met a lot of those criteria, and so we wanted to bring that to you and show you how it scored basically in the three different perspectives we talked about last month. So as a reminder, two reminders. The crisis center that we're working off of is the one at Oak-Kick at General Pershing. It has a URC, or an urgent recovery center, and those are chairs. That's 24 hours or less. And then there's a crisis stabilization unit, which sometimes is CSU, and those are beds, and those can be anywhere from 3 to 5 day stay. It could be up to 7 days. We have also been talking to lots of stakeholders over the past year or so, and this is what we're sharing with you today is a reflection of a lot of the feedback we've been receiving from them. So at the time that MAPS was passed in 2019, there were two primary facilities that we were talking about. There was Oak-Kick, which is General Pershing, and Oak Crew. Oak Crew was our community's first crisis center in the style that we're talking about, but was very much retrofitted into the existing administrative building of the Department of Mental Health. So really was not purpose-built for what we're talking about. That was really OKIC. That was the first time we tried to purpose-build one for that. Shortly after we started this process, we learned, though, from the Department of Mental Health that they had moved away from the building at 13th and Lottie, where their administrative headquarters used to be. They're now at Classen. And so only OCRU and a few other things were still left in that building. And so they let us know that it was their long-term plans to close down OCRU. So that map that you're seeing quickly turned into this for us. Well, in the time that's passed, what we've seen is the growth of these crisis centers that are primarily the URC, the chair portion that I talked about, that are popping up. And so those green pins show all the different things that have been built really since 2019. Now, all of them are not entirely equivalent here, but there have been certainly several that are meeting this new theme towards no wrong door policy. Then these are places that either the individual themselves or family or emergency responders can be taking people. So we felt like that was starting to be one of many what I'm calling centralizing impacts that are making us really want to focus more towards the core with our facilities. So this is just the city limits to give you a sense of those are the exact same pins that I talked about, but zoomed in. So last month we talked to you about the Restoration Center with the yellow pin, and today we want to talk to you about a proposed site at for the Crisis Center at 13th and Lottie, which would be right here. And let me tell you a little bit more about that site. So this is the southwest corner of 13th and Lottie, and it is actually where OCRU used to exist. And so we arrived at this site as we talked to the Department of Mental Health, and we asked the innocent question, well, what happens to the property when you guys leave it? And they let us know that they would most likely turn to OU and see if they had any use for it. But kind of implicit in that conversation was the thought that it would probably just turn into parking short term because it's really on the corner of their campus. So we were able to come up with what we think is a very productive partnership here. We received on Tuesday, as part of the subcommittee, we received a preliminary offer from the Department of Health to donate this land to us for this project, which has amazing impact on this because we would potentially be able to move the acquisition money that we had in the budget towards the construction budget, which is very much needed on this project. That gives you a little bit of a sense of where that block is in the overall OU campus. We've heard very tentatively that OU was interested in making sure that these services didn't leave their campus. This does have some value to them, and so we think there is some positive parts of that. Last month we talked to you about these three perspectives. On the left there is a chart of how people are arriving at OKIC through 2023. That was just for 2023. And we encourage you to look at that from three different perspectives, and is what is resident need, what is, how do we make sure these are accessible to our first responders, and three, how are we linking to our existing healthcare system? So I'm going to walk you through those same maps, but now with a second site on there. So that's the Restoration Center site. That's the Crisis Center site. So this is housing density that you do, again, have the tendency when you look at our boundaries to think that we need to serve all corners equally, but what I'm trying to drive home is that we actually live in it in a different way, that this is showing you the density of where we are actually living in our community, and we're trying to stay close to where our residents are. Also, I asked all the mental health experts that we started with early in this process, how do I map mental health? Can you help me understand where mental illness exists? And the response we got back repeatedly was, well, you can't map mental illness because it's everywhere. If there are people, there's mental illness. So this was the closest thing that we were able to produce out of existing data, and this came from the City County Health Department. And I'm not going to take you through each of the individual maps. This is the final map where all three of those factors on the right are added together, which is mental health visits by zip code, suicide rates, and drug overdose deaths, all by zip code. The darker the purple is where you're going to see the highest incidence of all three of those when the data is combined. So this is, again, the Restoration Center proposed site, and this is the Crisis Center proposed site. So we thought that was really impressive that they were literally on the corner of or in some of the highest zip codes in our community. The second perspective was accessibility for our first responders. Right now, we are presenting this as primarily about our police, because historically that is how most of these folks have arrived if they're coming with first responders. Just in the past week, we've been told that we do need to check back in with the fire department, because we know that they are taking in an increased role in that. I don't think the point of this map necessarily goes away with that, because they're going to be dealing with the same geographic constraints that our police department are. But just to let you know, we will be following up with them about how they're addressing some of our crisis response. So again, these are all the 12 subdivisions of our police department. The important thing is that if you're in Hefner 1 and you are dealing with a consumer that is having a mental crisis and you're having to take them to one of the facilities, that means you're leaving Hefner 1 for the entire time it takes you. And so when you talk to the police department, they're saying if there's 12 officers in Hefner 1 right now, that means they're down to 11 because I'm out for the time it takes. And so we've talked to the operators about the need to really make sure that that these are consumer friendly from a police and first responder standpoint, that they're getting in and out. That is something they understand very well. But again, this is, when you look at that, you really want to centralize those locations so that we're trying to be equally accessible to all 12 of the subdivisions. So that's the Restoration Center, and that's the Crisis Center proposed site. The last perspective is healthcare system. We asked our operators, after talking with Healthy Minds, and I mentioned that white paper last month, I need to make sure that I send that to you. They really emphasized that we needed to be placing these near our major healthcare providers. We asked our operators to rank those, and it came in terms of which ones they thought were most appropriate to be near, and this was the order that we ended up with: Saints, OU number 2, Southwest Integris number 3, and Baptist Integris number 4. There were two reasons for that, why we wanted to be near healthcare. One is because there is a little bit of back and forth that occurs. They may present in an emergency room when they really need to be at a crisis center, or more likely they'll be at a crisis center, maybe they'll have a broken arm and they need to have that addressed before the crisis center can really do anything to help them with some of their more sustaining issues. Second, the public is generally more accepting of these facilities when they are near major health centers. There's just kind of an expectation that this is part of the hustle and bustle of a medical center. I will say specific on this one, we really liked the fact that we were going back in with a use that already existed at the Eau Creuse site, and we weren't going to be necessarily going out to some sort of new part of the community and trying to convince the community that this was something positive, like that this is already something that was happening on that site, so the community around it already, to some degree, understands the ins and outs of it. This is a quick exercise we did to show drive times from those 4 major medical centers. The main takeaway from this is we were trying to stay generally in that bubble, which also, to most part, matches our the inner circle of our interstate system. So before we had started on these specific sites, we were generally trying to stay in that bubble. So one last piece I'll say before handing it over is we looked at lots of different models, particularly when we were dealing with 3 facilities before the combination question. When we turned to 2, that really kind of started to, I think, have us think about the different spheres around our downtown area. And if you have spent a lot of time in our downtown, you can appreciate that we have this major barrier, which is the railroad. And this has become, even when you talk to the 2 different medical centers, that this can become a blockage for people that are coming off I-235 and potentially going across 10th Street to 235, or if you're trying to bring people across over to OU. So I created this quick visual to kind of help you understand how we think these are dealing with the west of that track and east of that track, which we think will ultimately help all our police officers and first responders. So if you focus just on the red side, these are all the different ways that you can come into the crisis center and avoid that. And then if you're looking on the west, those are all the ways that we think you're going to be able to be served at the Restoration Center if you're coming from the west directions. So quickly in summary, The 7.6 million on the bottom line for construction, if we're able to accept this and save all that money for land acquisition, then that's an additional 1.7 million, and that would leave us up to a 9.4 million potential for construction in FF&E. One last thing I should mention is that we did eventually get to the point in the conversation about how we were going to handle demolition of the existing building on site. And I mentioned Arnell Family Foundation last month. They have generously offered to assist the Department of Mental Health with up to $350,000 to demolish the existing building and to mitigate any of the additional environmental issues because it is an older building. And so that is, again, helping us save money that could have potentially come out of our construction FF&E to use this site. So.
Okay, great. AJ, thank you. Sounds like a lot of moving pieces, but sounds like we've got a plan. Thank you. Any questions for AJ? Okay.
So then the second part of the presentation, Crystal Dinker from SA Studios will talk about the actual architecture.
Oh, okay. Hi, welcome.
Morning. This property is that we are going to recommend. We're going to talk a little bit about the site analysis and our process that we went through to make sure that this is appropriate site location for this project. Obviously, our site we are recommending today is at 1200 Northeast 13th Street. It is just on the east side of the OU Health Sciences campus. First of all, we looked at the zoning. This does not fall under the Oklahoma City zoning. This falls under the Capital Medical Center Improvement and Zoning District, which is regulated by the state. The property is currently zoned Health Center District, which allows for a really wide range of medical uses, and that does include mental health and rehabilitation centers. So in essence, the property would not have to be rezoned, or we would not have to get a special use permit to have this facility on this property. In looking at our test fit, we also needed to look at the zoning to determine parking requirements for the site. The parking requirements are going to be 67 spaces for the current program we are working with, which correlates with what the operator is requesting at 70 spaces. Then looking at property access and street topology, we have in yellow the arterial streets, and that is running along 13th Street north of the site. These are the streets that are going to move people from one part of the city to the other, connect highways to highways. And then on the east and the west side of the site, we have connector streets. And connector streets are moving residents from neighborhood to neighborhood and neighborhood to services. So we have a really good connection to the site with both highways, connection to highways and residential areas. Our next thing we were looking at is transportation. A lot of the consumers that will be coming voluntarily to the site will be riding the bus, and then a lot of the consumers that will be leaving the facility will be leaving by bus as well. So bus routes were going to be very important to this project. If you look at the dashed green lines, that indicates the bus routes currently in effect through Embark. It runs both east and west along 13th Street. And the yellow dots indicate the bus stops in the area as well. We are very fortunate to actually have a bus stop on this site on the northwest corner of the property. We also looked at bike lanes, and we have a shared access bike lane that runs along 13th Street as well. And then there is also a dedicated bike lane that runs along Lottie on the east side of the site. In looking at the neighborhoods, we are actually in the medical business district, so we do not fall under a neighborhood association, so we won't have to follow any regulations or requirements of a neighborhood association. Then we went ahead and looked at site utilities. We have currently in the green lines here, we have an 8-inch sanitary sewer. It's running across the middle of the property currently. Water, we have a 6-inch line. It is located in the blue along the south end of the property, south side of the property. And then there is a 16-inch water line that runs along Lottie on the east side of the property. The 6-inch would generally, we believe, would be too small to service this type of facility, so we would look into tying into that 16-inch running along Lottie. Then there is also gas service on the site. If you see running east and or north and south along the east side of the site, we have a alley easement here. There is a underground gas line that is running along that easement. OG&E also has overhead electric on the site running in that same north-south easement on the property. And then we have both AT&T and Cox Communications already running communications line to the site, both overhead in the north-south alley as well as underground to the northwest corner of the property. Then we're going to go ahead and look at concept. This is currently where our programming is. It's still a little bit of a work in progress, but we do have 5 sections of the program, and this is kind of the representation in white of the spaces required for each of these sections. And this is how we have come up with the square footage for our test fit massing model for this property. So our current net square footage for the program is at 17,365 square feet. We multiply that by a factor for each of these different divisions, depending on how many rooms or how many open spaces each section of the program has. And we have a gross area of 24,268 square feet, which then we multiplied by 20% to get circulation, hallways, corridors, etc., to come up with a total gross building area of 29,121 square feet. Now, approximately 1,000 square feet of that 29,000 square feet is outdoor courtyard space. So for our test fit purposes, we are using approximately 28,000 square feet for the building itself. When we started looking at the property, we were really concerned about the alley easement here, having 4 main utilities running through there, having to relocate that. So we decided we would look and see if we can locate everything to the west of that easement. So this is our proposed building footprint, and everything does fit to the west of that. So the existing alley easement and those 4 utilities could remain in place, and we would not have to relocate them. We would have to relocate the sanitary sewer currently running through the center of the site, but we would propose just running that and looping it south of the property. So this is the approximate location of the building. This is about 28,000 square feet, so you can see how that looks in relation to the site. The parking, we were planning on trying to locate it where the existing parking is on the north side of the site along 13th. There are 2 existing curb cuts that we would like to maintain so we don't disrupt the traffic and the current traffic patterns of 13th Street. And then you can see in this yellow area here, this is the bus stop. So we wanted to position our walk-in entry close to that, in close proximity for easy access. Then we have our law enforcement entry here, and that will be a secured fenced-in area. We thought we would share this existing curb cut to come in to access the law enforcement entry. Then looking at the services and how we're going to get deliveries made to this building, we thought that putting it along the back side of the property and along 12th Street would be a good option. This is not a divided street, so it's going to be a little bit easier access for trucks to get in and out of. And again, we were looking at reusing an existing curb cut here, bringing in a service drive, and then having a loading dock and a service entry on this side of the building. And then these are just kind of approximate locations we could consider for the fenced courtyard for the stabilization units. Then looking at a test fit, we did some massing to determine if this building truly would fit and work along the site, and this is what we've come up with. We are showing the 75 parking spaces here in the front with the walk-in entry in close proximity to where the bus stop would be located. And then the staff entry into a staff wing would be directly accessible from the parking. The staff will be primarily the people using the parking lot. Then back here off of 12th Street, we have the service drive. It would connect to the staff entry for easy access. And then we would have the loading dock kind of back tucked behind the building. And then this is where the secured law enforcement entry would be, with the fenced-in yard sharing the drive to the parking lot. This is just another view showing a different angle, so you can see the secured law enforcement entrance a little bit better and the access into the building, along with the walk-in entry and the parking spaces and the staff entry. And then here on this last slide, we're just showing a little bit on the back side of the building, with the courtyards kind of proposed to be on the, what I'm terming the quieter side of the street, the back side. So these also could be the stabilization unit wings with the bedrooms, so we want to keep that kind of towards the back, away from the main activity and the traffic on the site. That's it.
Hey, great, thank you. Any questions? Yes? Yeah. Joy.
So currently, I know that Oak Crew does not have the Urgent Recovery Center. Is that something that's going to be built into this new center, or will this just be crisis stabilization?
It will have two components. It will have a urgent recovery center and the crisis stabilization unit.
Great, thank you. Great. Chelsea, did you have a question?
When we saw the presentation for the Restoration Center, the designer of that project mentioned that the walk-in entry and the law enforcement entry, they don't like to have a lot of overlap there. So I guess I'm just kind of suggesting / asking, will there be some other options that include some more separation from the walk-in entry to the law enforcement entry?
So when we talk about the operator for staffing efficiency, they don't have the staff to have two separate entries. So what they want to do is have two separate entry vestibules that come in different locations, which is what we're showing here with on each side. And then there'll be a triage hub that they're going to share combined between the two. And again, that's just for a staffing efficiency for them.
Let me add, though, that they're still working. That's completely a work in progress. This is really
Correct.
just for the site. We'll bring you floor plan and those kind of issues at a later date soon.
Sounds good, thank you. And then we spoke about this in our committee meeting earlier this week, but I just wanted to bring it to this board too, that the Lottie House will remain on the property, it sounds like, and that you have already done the test fit to fit and include, you know, the consideration that the Lottie House will stay. And just throwing it out there that our discussion included, we wanted to make sure that the Lottie House services stay intact as they are.
Yeah, I should just be careful to clarify that Lottie House is a tenant of the Department of Mental Health. We're still trying to have that conversation with them to make sure that we have the best end result for Lottie House. I've been talking with Carrie Blumert over the past 2 days, and she's getting caught up to speed as the new director. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's definitely staying, because she may ultimately look at all this and decide that this is a good time for them to leave. I think that that's all being kind of debated right now.
Keep us posted. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So we need a motion and a second for the approval of this site for the MAPS 4 Mental Health Crisis Center. Please cast your votes. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to 2L, recommend final acceptance for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 4 and placing maintenance bond into effect.
Recall that the remaining MAPS 3 projects were assigned to this body, and this is our last project for MAPS 3, so, and also our last wellness center. So this will be officially the last of MAPS 3 with this final
wrapping it up.
acceptance of the original part. Now, there's still some things I'm going to talk to you
Pieces.
about on sidewalk, but this is the last of the original contemplated projects. So Michael Seagroves is here from GSB Architects to take you through what I think has been a wonderful project.
Great. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Just want to bring everyone back up to speed in case you weren't around when this project was born. We are at just south of 134th Street on Southwestern, adjacent to a small pond. We have a first floor with our kind of an area A, area B, one with a lot of exercise, and the other side social growth and art and various other activities at the Y programs. And our second floor is a walking track with rest area. And just to give you some views of the completed facility, the Y has been operating this facility since mid-May when we completed, and as Kelly and the WISE team brought you up to speed, they have had a lot of success there, good enrollment, good activity, and they are consistently adding more programs to this. This is our fitness facility with the track above and our art project hung from the ceiling in there. Pickleball courts, again with the walking track and a good view out onto the park. And the fitness pool and our pond just to the east and outdoor patio on the back. This information was from mid-August, but they do have 2,160 members. At that time was 39,000 check-ins since the grand opening. And you can see that they are just adding more programs and educational offerings as they go through. Our total completed contract amount was $14,497,687. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Any questions about the MAPS 3 health and wellness? This is kind of a milestone moment, finishing up MAPS 3.
We were very happy to be a part of it and happy to work with the MAPS team, the Y, the contractor, and ADG and everyone to make this come all the way through COVID and get finished and done and open.
Yep, thank you so much. No questions? Great, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So we need a motion and a second to accept for the final acceptance. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. And I would like to point out that it was 14 years, so buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Just setting expectations. Okay, moving on to item 2N, recommend approval of resolution authorizing the use of excess Oklahoma City capital improvement sales tax collections and the interest of $63,430 to construct a sidewalk along Southwestern Avenue between South 97th Street and Southwest 100th Street using the unit price contract for concrete streets and sidewalk repairs with Atlas Paving.
So this continues on with MAPS 3, and MAPS 3, having been completed with collections, has excess collections. If you remember, you approved and council subsequently approved a project to do some sidewalks in this area. Staff realized that by doing just another 2.5 to 3 blocks, we could connect several miles in here. So we're asking for this additional funding to connect what we just finished at a bus stop and connect it up to some existing sidewalks.
Love that. Good use of money. And so that's the last of the funds that were collected with MAPS 3?
No, it is not. There's still excess collections available.
Okay. Okay. So any questions about this item? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. That was a lot, but we're here to get a lot accomplished, so thank you for sticking with us. So moving on to item 3, discussion items.
We don't have anything else.
Nothing, okay. 4, MAP Citizen Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. I'll just say Innovation nor Civil Rights met this month. Any other reports from venues or community? Okay. Item 5, update status on the MAPS 4 program. Mr. Todd?
We've talked about a lot of projects today. I can tell you that the connectivity piece of the innovation bid yesterday, and it came in under budget. So you'll be seeing that next month for award and get that started. Everything else is moving. Animal shelter will be coming to you real quick. Get it on the street. We've got a lot going, as you see from today.
I love it. Okay, anything else? Okay. Moving on to item 6, comments by board, staff, or citizens. Do we have any citizens signed up? No. Anything from staff? No. Okay. Any comments from board? I just genuinely want to thank you. This is a lot of time over a long period of time, and your commitment is very much appreciated and is recognized by the city, by the citizens, by the city council. So thank you for sticking with it. Item 7, we are adjourned.